where we share stories that matter. At Kingdom Alliance, we are on a mission to ignite a movement of impact and freedom through mentorship and the development of leaders across the globe. You're invited to listen in as we share stories from men and women around the world who are having a massive impact on the kingdom. Here at Kingdom Alliance, we believe that when you change yourself, you change the world. Yay! Welcome back to the Kingdom Alliance podcast. I'm so excited to have with me this beautiful woman, Kelly Nuckols. She is a wife, a mother, an entrepreneur, and now we can add to her list of qualities a published author, a best-selling published author. Welcome to the podcast, Kelly.
Thank you for having me. That title just seems like it's a dream come true. And I taught a journaling class earlier this week, and when she was like posting about it in the Facebook group, and she was like, "We're going to have published author Kelly Nuckols with us tonight." And I was just like, "Oh my God." It just like shocked me kind of. I was like, that doesn't even feel real, but it is.
It's real. Actually, you should be calling yourself a best-selling author.
Yeah. It's wild.
That's amazing. I'm so excited. And before we actually start to talk about Restore My Soul, I just want to say Kelly was also at our annual event that just passed in October. We had Activate, and we have worship throughout the whole event. Yes, it's a business event, and yes, we do worship. And Kelly was a part of the worship team, and I think it really impacted you. You want to talk about that for a second?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I had one of the most awe-inducing experiences that I've ever had on that stage. We were praying in our room that morning, and we were just like, "God, we're hungry for you. We want more of your presence. We want you to fill that room, and we want people to just have an experience with you. And we just are asking for you to come close to us." And man, did he show up in that worship session. It was just one of the most beautiful things that I've got to experience. I was on my knees. I was on my face. It was like tears were coming. I almost wanted to scream. Like it was just, his presence was so thick and heavy and just awe-inspiring in that moment. And I was just it's hard to even explain. It was just it was one of those experiences where you kind of had to be there, and we can try to explain it, but it was beautiful. It was beautiful.
It's different than anything, I know exactly what you're saying, because as I have tried to describe our culture, what it's like, and Activate in particular, I just sound like somebody who's drank the Kool-Aid, oh, it's just amazing. But it's unlike anything I've ever experienced at any event, at any Bible study, at any Christian conference, business conference. It's truly, I describe it like this. I imagine that this is a tiny, tiny, tiny sliver of what it's going to feel like in heaven.
Oh man, just to even think about that. I mean, it truly was just a blessing to be there and to be surrounded by men and women who are hungry for the Lord and ready to develop who they are and who he's called them to be, and to just walk that out hand in hand with other people who are wanting to do the same thing. And it's amazing.
It is amazing. And you are now etched into the history books of Kingdom Alliance forever, not just because you're an ambassador, not just because you sang on the worship stage at Activate, but because you were part of our very first anthology, our very first book that we published with the Kingdom Alliance Publishing House. And, your story is really, really profound. For those of you that have not read it, she's one of the authors in the first edition, or the first volume of the Restore My Soul book anthology. And, I was really moved by your story. I don't want to give it all away because we want people to read it, but I'd love for you to talk a little bit about it. And I want to say this, as a Christian, oftentimes we feel shame in sharing parts of our story, especially when it comes to divorce. It's weird. It's like, you could be a drug addict, you could have been a hooker, you could have been all these things, but like, we are so almost ashamed to talk about divorce. And yet 50% of the church has gone through divorce. And I think we need to talk more about it. And I think part of the fact that part of the reason it happens so often is because nobody's talking about, like, let's talk about these things so that we can teach young people that aren't married yet some of the things that we walked through so that they can be aware of it. And, obviously some of this stuff is not in our control. It's not because we made a bad choice. It's because of, in your case, the story, that was not in your control. But I would just love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Well, I never anticipated for it to be part of my story at all. Everyone in our circle thought me and Brian were like perfect together, and we sang music together and just meshed so well. And so, but when tragedy hits, people just handle grief in different ways, and they go through those motions in different ways, and it caused this drift to happen, and it was heartbreaking. But the thing is that the Lord was with me in every single moment of that, and He had kind of prepared me even before He left. He had kind of been opening my eyes to my weaknesses and the things that I was struggling with. He was drawing me closer to Him in those moments because He knew that I was going to need Him through the months that were coming. And so it's so bittersweet looking back on it now, and even writing my chapter of the book and looking back at all of my journal entries and just kind of going back into that time period was another layer of healing that I didn't even realize that I needed.
As you were writing it?
As I was writing it.
Yeah.
Because it just kind of brought all of these emotions back to the surface of that version of me, that girl that went through that, just the hurt and the loneliness and the heartbreak and the uncertainty and the raising my little girl on my own pretty much. Thank God I had my parents and I had good friends that helped me through that time. And then financially, God coming through for me in financial ways too. He just showed up for me, and I got to experience Him on another level that I had never gotten to experience Him before. I had grown up in church, but I had it was kind of like the checklist Christian. I was just checking off the list of what a good Christian girl is supposed to do, but it was there was never that deep connection and relationship with Jesus. And then through my college years, I kind of drifted. But whenever we got married, I kind of started coming back and started realizing it was more about a relationship than religion, which I was so sick of religion at that point. Yes. I was just like, this is not for me. And that's why I left the church for probably 5 or 6 years of my youth. And then realizing, He is always chasing after us. He is always just lovingly pursuing us. And whenever we finally realize that, it can just be just a beautiful experience with Him. And so, but yeah, divorce can be such a messy topic, and the enemy just wants to fill it with so much shame, yes, and condemnation and judgment. And it can even happen inside the church.
Oh, 100%. It does happen inside the church.
Legalistic, religious, churches that are just looking at the law. And,
yes,
and so I didn't thankfully I was in a church that didn't, never made me feel bad. They were very supportive and very just loving towards me in that time. And some of those anonymous donations came from my church that really just showed me God is going to take care of me when I didn't know how I was going to pay the mortgage, how I was going to pay all these bills that I was left with by myself on a server income. The Lord just I just saw miracle after miracle after miracle, and just the way He just showed His faithfulness to me. I will never forget just the faithfulness of God during that time. And and just how he met me in my brokenness, in the mess. He just always just showed up right on time, always on time. I don't know if you've heard that song. It rocked me a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was just last week that I heard it, and I ended up learning it, and it was just
You went live and played it, right?
I did.
Well, let me ask you a question, because I don't know that I've ever seen you go live like that and play. Is that new for you?
I've done it maybe just once or twice before.
I feel like there's been a shift with you just in the last month.
Yeah.
Like what was the catalyst? Everything like combined? Because I just feel like there's something, I don't know. If I could describe it in words, there is a lightness to you, like a joy that's coming off. You've always been very joyful, like you've always been, but there's something different. There's been a shift.
Yeah, there has actually. And it's interesting that you say that, because I was kind of thinking about that today. And the Lord is just stripping away anything that's not necessary in this season. I was thinking about this season of fall. It's my favorite season. I love the colors, and just love the warm days and the cool nights. And he kind of just reminded me about seasons of our lives, and like the natural seasons, and how the trees are shedding their leaves and they're letting go of what they no longer need for the season that's coming, the season. And so and he was already kind of working on me before he brought this analogy to my mind. He was already just kind of like stripping away like anything that is not necessary right now. It is me and you right now, and I have an assignment for you. So I've been working on something behind the scenes, and I'm super excited for more of that to come out soon, and I can't wait to share it with you. But
oh no, I can't wait till we stop recording. Maybe you'll tell me.
And so, even good things. Like, I was in a Bible study on Wednesday mornings, and he asked me to just take it away, because he's just really wanting me laser focused on him, and that I will not be distracted with anything else, even if it's good. And that doesn't mean like letting go of it forever. It was really hard for me to let go of that Bible study, because I really enjoyed it. But the Lord is just showing me like he is faithful. He wants me to just stay in step with him and walk with him. And so as I've been letting some things go, it's just been this weight just like dropping off of me, because I struggle with perfectionism and trying to like keep up with all the things and wanting to be good at this and this and this. And I have lots of passions and I want to do it all. And he's just showing me like, I've given you these passions for a reason, but at the same time, like, we got to focus on one thing at a time. And I don't want you to lose sight of me. I don't want you to get overwhelmed. I don't want you to start cycling into the anxiety and the overwhelm and the shame and the judgment whenever things start getting too heavy and you're pulled in too many different directions. So, just learning how to embrace grace.
I know exactly what you're talking about. When I've been in seasons of like, I'm supposed to either create content or write or something, I have to shut everything off. I'm I love to read and learn and listen to podcasts. And when I'm in those seasons, I really feel like I cannot. It's very bizarre. Like it's hard to explain. Like I'll listen to it and it almost creates an agitation. That sounds very odd, but like, I just know that God is trying to separate me from any influence outside of him. So that I'm not hearing the voice of somebody else or somebody else's opinion or somebody else's editorial or whatever, that I have a clear line of communication with him. So I very much understand that.
Yes, that's exactly how I feel. It's just like, I just want to hear his voice right now. And yes.
Well, I have just loved getting to know you even better, because, you get to know people, but when you write a story like what you wrote for the book, It's pieces of you that it's not like you're just talking about it in casual conversation. So did you have people in your life that didn't know that part of your story? Has that impacted people in your circle?
I think for the most part, I mean, most people had known, that I went through a divorce. I don't think they really knew the inner, the inside of it, Now, a few of my closest friends did, the ones that kind of walked with me through that season. But I think it was really, people didn't really fully understand everything that I went through. And I mean, even in the chapter, like, I feel like I could write a whole book
Yeah.
on that season of my life. And so it was hard for me to condense it into
So hard.
4,500 words or whatever that we had. I think I used them all.
I did. It's really hard. It's very hard because all the nuance and the things. And so to condense it down, it's really, really hard. Well, God has just redeemed your life in so many ways, and you're just married and happy.
Yeah.
He's so good.
He is so good. And my story did not turn out the way that I had thought it would. I had anticipated that I fully believed 100% that the Lord would restore my marriage. And I clung to that for many months and just walked with him through this season. And he chose, and that's another kind of lesson that we can learn too. And people that are in a challenging situation or maybe kind of walking through a very similar situation to what I did, that he's not always going to answer it in the way we think he will. Yes. And just learning to trust that he knows that he is greatest and he knows best, and really clinging to that. And that was something I read in a book recently, that he is greatest and he knows best is something that I'm choosing to cling to even now in the moments when things are uncertain, or, anything, any kind of trial or challenge that you may come against. But he is faithful, and he is with you, and he is for you, and he has great plans for you, even if it looks different than what you thought.
Matter of fact, in my life, it mostly has looked different than what I thought.
Yeah.
Most of the time, almost everything.
Yeah.
Well, if we have somebody listening who maybe is where you were in the middle, what advice would you give them as we end this?
Just sit at his feet. And there was one moment in the book, I can't remember if I ended up keeping that part in, but it was the moment whenever I was talking about, I was like just in such a dark place, and just my thoughts were tormenting me, and I was just sobbing like in my floor, and just completely broken, shattered. I feel like I mean, it's just to think about it now, I'm just like, but he came to me in that moment. And so just learning to sit at his feet and raise a hallelujah, that song came to me in that moment. Whenever I was reading the excerpt of the Lisa TerKeurst book, how it's not supposed to be this way. Mm-hmm. He led me to that. And it kind of was like, oh, it reminded me, I wanted to send her interview to some of my friends. And so I got on YouTube, and the first thing that popped up was Raise a Hallelujah. And it was a new song back then. I had never heard it. This was my first time hearing it. And I wept while I raised my hands while I was laying on my floor. And so learning to worship through the brokenness will heal you in more ways than you could ever imagine. And it's warfare, because the enemy wants to break you. The enemy wants to distract you and pull you into discouragement and depression. And that is not what God has for you. And I remember a friend of mine said, if it's heavy, it's not from God, so it's not for you.
That's right.
If it's heavy, it's not from God, so it's not for you. And so remembering that and knowing that worship is a weapon that you can use to defeat the enemy in those moments where you feel completely hopeless and completely broken and just shattered. You just feel shattered. And just remembering that he is going to come and rescue you when you cry out to him. And it was an amazing, just so many moments like that throughout my journey. So many. And a mentor of mine during that time said, I know the pain that you're in, because she had also gone through a divorce as a Christian with 2 young children. And she said, I know the pain that you're in right now. I know how bad it hurts. But whenever you come out on the other side, you are going to miss these moments that you had with the Lord. And she was right, because I had never been as close to him as I was in that season. I was desperate.
Yeah.
And out of that desperation, my faith grew, and I just clung to him. And so that would be my advice for anyone just going through a difficult season, a trying season, a desperate season. Like, be desperate for him and just draw close to him. Open his word even when you don't feel like it. Turn on the worship even when you don't feel like it. And even when you don't know what to pray, just say his name and just say, help me, Lord. And he will come, and he will meet you, and he will wrap his arms around you, and you will just feel just his love like you've never felt it before. That was my experience anyway.
Preacher Kelly. That was so good. Thank you so much. And we're going to put her social media handles in the show notes. If you're watching this on YouTube, or it'll be right below. If you're listening to it, it'll be in the show notes of the podcast so that you can connect with her, and make sure, and we'll put a link to the book. Make sure you go out and get that book. It's available on Amazon and all of the popular booksellers, Barnes & Noble and all of that, so that you can just be absolutely filled with hope as she shares her heart with you. Thank you so much, Kelly. Appreciate you getting on here, and excited for what's next.
Yes, me too. Thank you so much.